Hello everyone. Today we are going to study Unit 3 for second back, formal, informal and non-formal education. We are going to focus on vocabulary related to this unit. Okay, so let's start. Let's start with what is education. So here we have two definitions. Number one, education is the process of bringing desirable changes into the behavior of human beings. So the change of behavior or attitude. Okay. Number two, it can also be defined as the process of imparting or acquiring knowledge or habits through instructions or study. So here we have the acquisition of knowledge or habits or studying. Okay, that's the definition of education. So let's ask a question. What are the three types of education? Do you know the three types of education? So think of it. So in this video, we are going to focus on the three types of education. So let's see what are they. We have here three major types of education. Number one, we have formal education. Number two is informal education. And number three, non-formal education. So let's think of the definition of each one. We have a question. Which type can we include school education? So is it formal education, informal education, or non-formal education? So what do you think about this? We can include school as formal education. So what is the definition of formal education? So let's give an example. Here is a definition of formal education. So formal education is the education that occurs within an organized and structured context. It is usually located in institutions dedicated to education or training, structured via learning objectives or learning strategies, facilitated by a teacher and leads to certification. So in formal education, we have school, for example, we have teachers, we have students, and we have program. So, and we have materials, the books, okay? And at the end of each semester or each year, we have a certification. All these things mention that it's formal education. So this is formal education briefly. Another question, do you learn only at school and from teachers or in other places and other sources? If yes, what are those places and sources? So let's check together. This is informal education. So let's see what is informal education. Here we have a definition by Onet, 2006. He said that informal education is learning that goes on in a daily life and can be received through daily experiences, such as from family, peer group, the media, and other influences in a person's environment. So, what is going on around us? This is informal education. We can learn from family, from friends, from TV, from computers, from internet, from different media. Okay, so this is informal education. Last question. If school is formal and society and others are informal, what about private classes? What do you think about private classes? What is the type of education is it? So it's a non-formal education. So let's check together what is non-formal education. So, non-formal education is any organized educational activity that takes place outside the formal education system. Usually, it is flexible, learner centered, and not specific for the target group. It can be kids, youth, adults, etc. So, non-formal education, it is related to illiteracy. So, literacy classes. So, we have activities related to formal education, but it's outside, not in the school. So, this is the last type of education, which is non-formal education. So let's focus on characteristics of every type of education. As we have seen before, we have the three types of education. We have formal, informal, and non-formal education. We have the aims or objectives. Okay, for each one has its own objectives. For example, formal education, we have certificate, employment. So at the end of any semester or year school, so we have certificate and employment. We have an objective. Informal, we have sudden and aware learning. We don't have an objective. So it's a sudden and aware learning. We can learn from TV, for example, without consciousness. And we have non-formal education. We have to boost knowledge. So here we boost or we raise our knowledge. Okay. Then concerning place, we have education institutions, school. So this is the place where we can learn in formal education. We have schools, institutions, okay? Informal, it's anywhere. We can learn at home, outside, in a cafe, in the restaurant. We can learn from different places. Non-formal education, we learn at home, library, centers, etc. Okay, concerning the age group, informal education, it depends on periods. For example, in primary school, we have specific age, and in the middle school, we have specific age as well, and in high school, we have specific age from, for example, 13 to 17. Okay, and informal education, not specified. We don't have a specific age. And non-formal education, it's flexible. We have adults, kids or children. We have old people, for example. So all these are characteristics of each one. So here we have an exercise. Fill in the gaps with the right word from the list given. We have formal education, non-formal education, and informal education. Think of these pictures. So we have the first picture. We have teacher and students in the school or in the class. So what do you think about it? Think of it. So this is formal education, yes. Picture number 2, we learn not in the school but in life. So when we learn from families, from life in general or environment, so what do you think? So this is informal education, yes. And the last picture, so we have elder people learn. So what is this? So it's non-formal education. So this is exercise number 1. So let's move to the second one. The second exercise is matching. So match each expression with its proper definition. We have other types of education. We have self-learning, formal education, non-formal education, informal education, e-learning, and vocational education. You can match them with their definition. It depends on places on people involved, for example, on the characteristics in general. So we have A, learning on both computer and communication technology. For example, students can learn using their phones, internet, or TV. So what do you think about this? It's e-learning, okay? Because we use electronics. That's why we call it e-learning, because we use computers and phones, etc. B, it prepares students for professions related to an occupation or vocation. In Morocco, we have of PPT. So here we use professions. Okay, so we prepare students for professions as trainings, for example. So this is vocational education. C, it happens in a school where students learn knowledge and skills. It starts with primary through middle and high school and continues with higher education at university. This form of education is obligatory and should lead to a diploma or diplomas. Students use textbooks, tables, and materials to study. So this is formal education. Why? Because we have different schools, for example, primary school, middle and high school to university, and we have textbooks, tables, teachers, diploma at the end. Okay. D, learning by oneself with no teacher or instructor. So we learn by ourselves without teachers. So this is self-learning. Okay, everyone learns by himself or themselves. E, it happens outside school in our everyday life. We learn from our daily experiences and social activities. Examples of this type of education are reading books, cooking, surfing the internet. It is a lifelong process that does not stop. So we learn through experiences and social activities. So this is informal education. And the last one, F, it includes adult literacy education. A person can learn literacy or basic skills by going on field trips or getting homeschooled. It leads to no official diploma. So it is related to literacy classes. So this is non-formal education. Okay, so these are the types of education. So let's move to the last exercise. So the last question is D. Answer the following question. In your opinion, what is the best type of education and why? You can use like this example. In my opinion, the best type of education is informal education because life is the best school ever. So you express your opinion according to your point of view and say why. Okay, so think of it and share your ideas with us.